Okay, we've got our leather ready to go. I've got the border punched in. I've got the edges beveled on both pieces. And I've got my stitch lines marked on this part. I just marked it with an ink pen. Let's see, I took my my pattern, put it along there, and just marked it. And same thing with that one, because I'll be going back and marking them again once it's dyed. But on the inside, I went ahead and I scribed it with my scratch awl. That way after it's dyed, I can still see where the lines are. If I need to do it again after it's dyed, I can go ahead and scratch it in again. Did the same thing on both pieces. What that does is it tells me where my stitch line is and how far in I want to go with my glue after the dye is dry. But for right now, I keep saying dye, as in leather dye. It's time to use the leather dye. And in this case, I'm dyeing it black. I always like to shake it. My dye, that is. Keep a paper towel handy. Can you see that? I put it in a clamp, so it's difficult to knock over, because if you knock over a bottle of dye, boy does it make a mess. Nothing overly complicated to dyeing leather, or as far as the way I dye leather, is I just take a dauber, put it in the dye, and spread it on. I do the inside first. It just seems to work better with me. It doesn't matter so much with black, but for other colors like tan and brown and such, it does make a difference, because if you get some on this side, like if you dye this side first and then put it down, it can end up looking blotchy. But like I said, with black, that's not so much of a problem. Now, as far as how much dye I like to use on these things, lots. At least until it starts puddling on the surface. And it stays shiny about like that. Now I'm going to do the same thing with this one, and we'll be back. Alright, now I got the inside dyed. Oh, look at there, I got a little light spot. There we go. And as you can see, I didn't bother dyeing these parts, because those are the parts that are going to get glued together. So they don't need dye on them. Doesn't make a difference. The glue will work just as well whether or not it's dyed. I just didn't do it. Doesn't really matter. Anyway, what I do is when I dye the skin side of it, I do the same thing. Just lots of dye on the dauber and keep going until it puddles on the surface. When it does that, I know that the leather has taken all the dye that it can. It's completely saturated. Especially with black dye, that's the way I like to do it, to make sure that I get an even coat of dye, or I should say an even color, because it's not a coating, it's soaked in. Soaks into the leather. So I just keep adding dye until it puddles on the surface. Now I just saw through the window that my wife's home. She went to get the mail. So she'll be entering in just a second. But anyway, you get the idea. Just keep adding dye to it until it stays shiny and wet looking. Well, that's the way I do it. Some people, I mean, you could dip dye this, like have a big vat of dye, as long as it's airtight. Seal it up, dip dye the leather, and let it dry. I use daubers. And another word, as far as the edges go, I go ahead and I dye the edges, just this one and this one, because after it's glued together, I'm going to go ahead and sand that, and I'm going to do my stitching and beveling, and then touch them up with dye, and then burnish them. So there's no reason to dye these edges yet. Looks like it's going to take one more coat of dye and it's done. Doesn't matter how it's applied, not really. Because the idea, like I said, is to saturate the leather. Not just color it a little bit or coat it, but saturate it. That's the way I like to do it, and that's what's been working for me. Just a little bit more. There we go. Now the thing is, once this is all done and that finish gets buffed out and it gets that gleam to it, it is so pretty. Anyway, that's it for now, and we'll see y'all next time.